Hi, I'm Scott Alexander, and I'm going to do a series of shorter video podcasts in between my release of future chapter essays on Maimonides' Guide of the Perplexed. These are going to be about aspects of his thinking that are either counterintuitive or are misunderstood. Today's talk would fall into the category of generally counterintuitive or unexpected, since I'm going to talk about why Maimonides generally rejected the existence of an actual infinite. For an account of why the ancients tended to reject the notion of infinity, take a look at my chapters on Guide 173 and 174 on my website of commentaries on the guide, maimonides-guide.com. Nowadays, we tend to take for granted the existence of an infinite, but that wasn't always so. People used to be very suspicious of infinites. In the introduction to Book 2 of the guide, Maimonides states three propositions. Number 1, there can't be a body of infinite size. Number 2, there can't be an infinite number of bodies existing together at the same time. Number 3, there can't simultaneously be an infinite number of non-corporeal entities like minds or souls, even if they're in a causal chain. So if you boil down these three rules, you get three elements that should always be the case whenever you're talking about an infinite. You're talking about an actual infinite, number 1. You're talking about a magnitude, something that's quantifiable or measurable. And number 3, you're talking about things that are existing at the same time, simultaneously. Aristotle taught that the infinite is unknowable, and that's a very important idea. He was talking about an infinite number, an infinite body, or magnitude, or an infinite number of forms or principles. If anything is infinite, the truth is you're never going to know it, because there's always going to be more to know. And because of that, you're not going to get anywhere with science unless you're studying something where there's a possibility of knowing it. But with an infinite, there's no possibility of ever knowing the infinite. Maimonides was therefore right to begin his summary of the Aristotelian system in the introduction to Book 2 of the Guide of the Perplexed with the problem of infinity. For the question is whether we're committed to learning about our world. To do so, we have to assume that it's something we can actually learn about. Maimonides determined that we couldn't start our scientific inquiries without generally assuming the finitude of the world. He restricted whatever infinite there may be to a well-defined class of unknowable things. So what does the word infinite mean? If there is an infinite at all, it must be something which is capable of being finite. In other words, whenever we talk about an infinite, we're talking about an extension or a magnitude which could in principle be measured or quantified, but which is nonetheless infinite. Generally, we're talking about an infinite body or an infinite number of bodies. In Proposition 3 that I mentioned above, Maimonides will also talk about things that are not bodies, like minds or souls, but nonetheless, he'll come to the conclusion that there couldn't be an infinite number of them either. This definition of the infinite as a measurable or quantifiable magnitude eliminates common metaphorical infinites that we speak about in common parlance, like my love for you is infinite, but my patience is not. That's because love and patience are not magnitudes, they're not measurable, and because no emotion, like love or patience, can be quantified. Another consequence of this definition is that minds or souls, which are non-corporeal entities and are, by definition, unquantifiable, could never be infinite, nor could there be an infinitely large array of such minds or souls simultaneously existing together. An infinite magnitude is impossible because it would have to be bounded, it would have to possess weight, and it would have to have a definite figure. It would also have to have a definite place, defined in Maimonides' tradition as the surrounding equal and separate limit of the surrounded body, equal to the body surrounded, but separate from it. But an infinite would always go beyond its bounds, beyond its weight, beyond its figure, and beyond its place. One important but difficult concept is that the infinite would be untraversable. The most simple explanation of this untraversability is that you would never be able to get across an infinite, because no matter how far you went, there would always be more. There would always be further to go. Well, therefore, if a causal chain were infinite, there's no possibility of ever reaching its ultimate cause. For example, a row of dominoes. When the last domino goes down, we know that there had to have been a first domino which started the fall of the dominoes. But if the row were infinite, it would be untraversable, and you'd never get either a first domino or a last domino. But since the last effect is in the chain had a specific cause, and you see that last effect, that last domino, there must be a specific cause at the beginning of the chain, a first domino. It had to be traversable, and therefore it could not be infinite. For more on this concept of untraversability, see my essay on Guide 169. The Muslim theology of the Kalam theologians, that's K-A-L-A-M, went too far when it unqualifiedly employed this doctrine of untraversability to justify their rejection of any and all infinites. That was because it was part of their proof that the world was created, a proof that was not accepted by Maimonides. They argued that the universe could not be eternal because it would be untraversable. Since, they thought, it could not be eternal, this proved it had to have been created, and that therefore God had to create it. There had to be a creator. Maimonides could not accept this argument, and here's why. Maimonides and his entire tradition restricted untraversability to actual causal chains. Actual causal chains, like real rows of dominoes, cannot go on forever. But eternal stretches of time are not like rows of dominoes. Maimonides did not consider successions, like successions of human generations, or of the successive rotations of the spheres, or of the succession of moments in time, to be actual causal chains. Therefore, they could go on forever, according to Maimonides. He called this the accidental infinite, and he called it that because it was about incidents or accidents of real things that resulted from causation, and not about the things in themselves in the causal chain. He also believed in a similar exception to the rule against infinity, and it goes like this. If he believed that if you could take a body of whatever length, divide it again, and keep on successively dividing it, you could do so forever. He called this the potential infinite because you could never live long enough to finish this division. No matter how many times you divided it, you could always divide it again. Neither of these two exceptions, the accidental infinite and the potential infinite, were sets of actual infinite things existing simultaneously, like dominoes. Recall the three key elements. Number one, an actual infinite. Number two, a magnitude. Number 3, simultaneity. Because the accidental and potential infinites are not actual in the sense of being present to us, and are not presented to us simultaneously, these two narrow exceptions to the rule against infinity do not invalidate the general rule. There could be an accidental and there could be a potential infinite. And so time could conceivably go on forever. Maimonides had much to say about this problem later in the guide, but for now, it was clear to him that the Kalam theologians had not proved creation, and this left the proof of the Creator in the lurch. There were gigantic consequences to this terrible state of affairs, to which Maimonides devotes a large portion of the end of Book 1 and the first part of Book 2 of the guide. Bottom line, there could be no infinite physical magnitude standing against God. Maimonides would go on to use this principle to show that the causal chain leading to all earthly motion must be finite. Being finite, the chain must have an actual mover ultimately responsible for all of those motions. He then shows that this mover must be God. You may contact me directly at Scott M for Michael Alexander at rcn.com with comments, questions, and criticism. Please visit my website, Maimonides-guide.com, to see my commentary essays on each chapter of Maimonides' Guide of the Perplexed, currently completed through the entire first book of the guide. And you will see also on that website other essays that I've written that are relative to this topic, other podcasts that I've done, and important links. And of course, please like this video and share it. Thank you.